concept is it's basically 20 minutes on a topic, 20 minutes on the process, and then 20 minutes to let you implement that process. And so what I'm going to do now is show you what we call our leadership time solution. And it's really important that you have to understand what stress is doing to the body and why we need to recover a little bit. So here's the leadership time solution. How many of you feel like this could be you on any given day? Most of us feel this way. And what's really happening is we are competing more and more for more time in the day. And what I think is really interesting is no matter how much money that you have, you still can't buy more time. So we have to find ways to utilize our time and utilize it the best way possible. And there's a lot of different time programs out there, but I want you to think about this. With technology today, with the phones and the iPads and the PDA devices, you never get away from work. How many of you on weekends and evenings are checking your phones? As we've done this is we now take our work home with us. And on weekends and in nights, we never get away from it. It's causing problems because we never get a chance for our minds to basically settle down. There's a strain between work and home. How many of you have ever heard, all you do is work? Why can't you just put that thing down and pay attention? How many of you would like to just sit and watch a movie without the buzzing of your phone or something along those lines? How many of you have jobs that you've had to get up in the middle and leave the dinner table to answer a phone call? And people are like, why do you do that? You know, I was going to St. Louis for Easter one year, and I was basically on call, and I was in a situation where I basically thought I was going to have to turn the car around on Easter and come back to Jeff City, and my kids are crying, going, Dad, just quit your job. Just quit your job. We want to go see Grandma for Easter. It shouldn't be this way. But it is. We all want to survive, and we want to push farther and harder. So there's a big strain. Working harder with less is the new norm. Since September 11, 2001, we've been in a downturn economy. Everybody in this room is doing more with less. If we had more money, if your organizations you work for today were flushed with money today, they wouldn't rush out and hire people tomorrow. Why? Why, Bill? You don't have to. Why don't you have to? Yeah, everybody has proven that they can do more with less. We've been doing it so long, it's the new norm. There's other things that are more important. We're going to build up our reserves. We're going to expand. We're going to do capital improvements. We're going to do all this before we go out and hire new people. So the fact is, folks, for the next approximately 5 years, if the economy turned today, you are still going to be doing more with less for the next 5 years. We expect it, and things are going to be that way for a while. Sorry, that's just how it is. So it's causing us all to have certain other elements going on. We feel a constant sense of fatigue. We talk about having a work-life balance. We talk about, hey, I want to be able to go to work and then I want to go do things afterwards. How many people want to go home and be able to have extracurricular activities at home? Only half of you? What do the other half want to do? But yeah, you want to go home and you want to be able to do things, but sometimes that you go home so exhausted from work, you go in and you plop down on the couch. And you're just like, wow, I've had a really stressful day. Things didn't go my way. I can't believe I had to sit through that meeting. Those people they frustrate me. So what happens when you sit on the couch and you don't get anything done at work or at home? And then the next morning that you get up, how do you feel the next morning right before you go back to work? You were stressed at work, and then you were stressed at home. And you didn't do anything at home. So the next morning you get up, and you're still stressed, and you're fatigued. So in this constant state we see constant state of fatigue. And that's really important, because basically I'm going to lob a ball up there, and I'm going to let Mary Shackelford nail it out of the park, because she's going to talk about some of the important elements of what fatigue does to you and how to relieve it. We're in a constant state of stuff and messes. We have to worry about creating all that. And I really want to talk to you about what fatigue does, is because we have so many ways of communicating now. We're constantly in a state of communication. And when we communicate, we basically have the 5 senses that we communicate. But we have so many more elements of it. versus the iPad versus the cell phone versus everything else, email, text messages. We're constantly in that state of fatigue because once that happens is we basically have 4 states of emotions: happy, sad, anger, and fear. And of those 4 basic emotions, there's a lot more, but we're going to roll them up into 4. Into those 4 is 3 out of those 4 trigger the fight or flight response in the body. Happiness is the only one that doesn't trigger a fight or flight response. And when you have that fight or flight response, you have to realize that there's a chemical reaction going on in your body. There's a cortisol that's being released, and that release of the cortisol is going through your body, and it's making your muscles tense up. It's making your blood pressure go up. It's making your heart work harder, and it's making all of these other things work. And once you have the fight or flight response, and it's constant. Folks, for some of us, since 2001, we've been in a constant state or fight or flight. We got to get more done. I got to get more done. I got to look at my to-do list. It's this big. I don't know what to do. And we're constantly in that state. And once you do that for long terms, there's some serious, serious health implications going on. So we developed this time solution. And basically what I want you to do is start looking at this, because it's really important that you understand how fatigue impacts you. So the first thing is we noticed is that when we are designed, the human brain and the human body is designed that we can only focus on one task and do it well. If we focus on one task and one task only, we can do it well. But the problem is, as people's jobs have been cut, as people have left, as people have increased workloads, we're doing more with less, is we get additional tasks and duties added to us. Many of you here can multitask, and you can add and do things at many given time. It's because we have a lot of different things going on. And then we get to a point that is crisis mode, because we get so many things going on at one time, we're constantly in a state of crisis, because we're trying to juggle all these balls at one time. And statistically, this one hurts me big time, because statistically, when we get to this point here, our IQ drops by 13 points. Our IQ drops by 13 points just by multitasking. Folks, I don't have 13 points to give up. And if you're constantly in that state, it becomes a long-term problem. So what can you do? We came up with this leadership time solution because it's really, really important. Hard to see on this screen, but you're going to notice that we have 3 different areas that we break it up. And the first one is rejuvenation or recovery time. And the recovery time is really, really important, because you have to understand that your brain is the best computer processor in the world. If we truly understand how the brain works, you'll understand that it's the best processor in the world. But the problem is with the human brain, it works with all of your organs and all everything else in your body. It needs time to reset. It needs time to reset. And when we bring work home, or we're constantly checking our phones, we're constantly checking emails, what happens? Do we ever give it time to reset? And the research is telling us that it takes about 24 hours before it fully resets. And so I'm going to start telling you is, I want you to get to the point where you can go to a 24-hour period of time without doing any work-related activity. Now, you're not going to get there tomorrow, and you're not going to get there by next week. This takes time. It took you a long time to get where you're at. It's got to take a long time to get back. But you're never going to get there until you fully give yourself 24 hours of time to reboot. The brain needs to calm down and then reset itself. Otherwise, it's going to be constantly in that state of chaos. All right? So that's what the rejuvenation time is, or the recovery time is. No communication, no text messages. This time should be planned ahead. We want you to be thinking about scheduling recovery time. And that recovery time is important. Plan your vacations well in advance. They're telling us, with all the information that goes on, we need to be taking vacations, and they should be planned vacations to recover. Now, the current research shows us with the amount of stimulation that we get, and this one's kind of scary, because when they're talking about stimulation, they're talking about communication. And what we mean by communication is how many messages are broadcast to us on any given day. So how many messages or how many marketing things are broadcast to you all in any given day, do you know? Over 200? How about 6,000 to 8,000 a day? You might see Ascend on my shirt. You might see Rocket Group. You might look around and see G2 Gallery. All of this stuff is, you're being marketed to 6,000 to 8,000 times a day, whether you wanted to or not. Now, what's fascinating is in the 1800s, you know how many times a person was marketed to? 3 to 4 in a lifetime. You get double that every day. And folks, that does a lot on the body, because what it's doing is causing significant health problems. And Mary will attest to this here shortly. Do you know what the number one cause for physicians, people coming in and seeing a physician is? Stress. Now what's funny is, you know what the number one diagnosis is for adults right now? ADD. Now it's funny, if you talk to a clinical psychologist, and the ones I've talked to basically say the characteristics and traits of workplace stress and the characteristics and traits of adult AD are very similar. And you know what else is? The treatment for adult workplace stress and adult ADD is very similar. So they're diagnosing adults with ADD. And it's having simple precautions, and there's simple things that we can do. And I hope Mary gets into it because her techniques work. I'm living proof. Okay? All right. The next part of this time solution is productivity. This is the stuff that has to get done. This is the stuff that has to happen. I want you to break up your task into your cleaning up of your execution time. It's using this time to prepare for visionary time and recovery time. Now, what I think is fascinating is, how many of you have goals? Raise your hand. How many of you have written goals? How many of you are blocking out at least 20% of your week to get to those goals? That's pretty impressive. If you're not doing that, you're never going to get to your goals. And let me tell you why, is because we're doing so much more with less. All we're doing right now is try to keep our head above water. We're just in survival mode. And if we don't start blocking out times and doing all the things that we need to do, and then start scheduling them in the appropriate areas, we're never going to get anything done. How am I going to get new skills or training? How am I going to be able to check in and make sure that my team members are getting the growth and development that they need? And the last time is our vision time or our planning time. And this is period is strictly dedicated to planning for the future without interruptions. We want you to focus on 3 things. And basically, once we leave this segment of our executing and workshop, is we go into a weekly planning session. And that weekly planning session is we say, what are the most 3 important things that you have to get done that week? Doesn't matter because you have 100 of them to do. We know you have 100 to do, but you got to do 3 to advance towards your goals. They can be your organizational goals or they can be your personal goals. Why 3? You can't focus on any more than 3. Okay? You can't focus on any more than 3. But then we also have on the other side is a segment of all of the to-dos that you have to do. You should plan this time 2 to 3 weeks in advance. What's interesting is we have to quit thinking like we did in the 70s and 80s for management style. Because this time, this visionary time, this planning time should be uninterrupted time. Why? Uninterrupted time. Why? Focus. Somebody who said that? Elaborate. Yeah, because if you're not focused and you don't minimize disruptions, you're going to hear this vibrate, or it's going to go ding, or something's going to happen and it's going to pop up on your screen, and then you're going to pull your attention away from it, and statistically it takes 20 minutes for you to get back into the groove right where you were at. What's that? Yeah, exactly, and I don't have it to lose, trust me, okay? You should instruct people not to disturb you during times. I basically have gotten to a point where I work from home. Now, I have the luxury of doing that, but I bet you that if we get people to train to do this, you can go find somewhere to work that's quiet and you won't have interruptions. And people have to be taught not to interrupt you. Respect that time, because it's amazing how much farther you can get. Now, as you go through this time system, your days will evolve. Right now, the majority of people in stage 1, they're in cleanups. They're running around, all they're doing is in survival mode. I just got to get through this day. I got to get through this day. Okay? Is it Friday yet? I love coming in on mornings and hearing people, Monday mornings, and hearing people say, is it Friday yet? You know? What I want you to do is get to the point where your recovery time, which is scheduled downtime, scheduled time to let the body reset. The scheduled time to let the brain reset. The blood pressure to go down. All of the vital organs to come back. Is then you'll get into stage 2. And then when you get into stage 3, it's funny because when you get into stage 3, you don't have to work as many hours in the day. Why? You are much more efficient. You can actually get much more done because you will not allow people to interrupt your times. So if you're working 50 to 60 hours now, I'll see you in class because we can give you the tools on how to get to stage 3. All right? It's proven we can do this. Part of this whole process is to give everybody the tools. I hate teaching theory. And I've been teaching theory for 11 years, and I said, I'm done with it. I'm going to introduce my own tools. So that's what we've done. Questions or comments about the leadership time solution? It works, folks. It truly, truly works. Kayla? Well, it's funny because once you take those times and you have to teach people to respect your time. So you say, hey, this weekend I'm going to turn the emails off on my phone. I find it funny because if you use Outlook or whatever email that you're using and you put is, I'm going to be away from my email until Monday morning at 8, and you hit that autoresponder, what will everybody do? If it's important. Or they'll wait till Monday. We've got in a society that we've allowed them to condition us to respond so importantly and quickly. But it might take you a little time. That's why we're going from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 is going to take you time. But you have to train them. Because the one thing I want to leave you with is learning hasn't taken place until behaviors have changed. Otherwise, it's garbage in, garbage out. So all the stuff that you learn here today or you discuss today, if you don't apply it, it's all for naught. So it's going to take time to condition everybody to what you're doing. But once you get to that point, they will respect it. And they're going to find out that you are productive and you are doing things. Well, actually, it's going to be based on your schedule. Right now, you're going to have to start small. Once you get to the point, I want you to build and think about stage 3 as 24-hour time blocks. So if you get to that point, is you say, I'm going to have a recovery day, it's a 24-hour period of time. It's saying, or this, or a planning time. And sometimes you just have to look at it and say, I'm going to have planning time from 8 to 5. I'm going to schedule everything I need for the week. Well, if you're like me, as I've started to do this, I can get, in 8 hours, I can get 40 hours work done because I'm not interrupted. And once I do it, I've actually gotten it down to maybe 2 o'clock. My day's over. I quit work. I got everything done I wanted to accomplish. I'm much more productive. Is it going to happen tomorrow? No way. But that's why we build on the backside of it tools to get you there.